Jess, how's it going, sir?
Good. Lots of meetings today. Fun stuff.
Well, we are ready for you.
All right.
Thanks for your time.
No problem. Glad I could get together. So I hear we have a couple of release canvases to review.
That's correct. We've got Web's release canvas 1.0 that I'm going to kind of refresh your memory on.
Awesome.
Essentially, we're, as a Greenlight project, we're starting with the blank canvas, needing to essentially just render events to users, which is the basis of our project again. So we're going to have a list view of cards that clicking on which leads to single event views, and then a standard login process as well.
All right.
And we've kind of got everybody set up to share with you. So I'm going to pass over to Lowell so he can walk you through front end, if that's good for a review of the release canvas.
All right. Nice. Is somebody supposed to be talking? You might be on mute.
Yeah, I was muted, sorry.
Okay.
So on release canvas 1, we basically made 2 main pages, which are the event list view and the single event view. This is the event list view page. At the top, we have the featured events in a carousel. And down here we have a list of all of the events, and we set it up so you can filter by when the event is happening, and
nice.
There's no events, so it'll go away. And there's a grid view.
Nice.
And then when you click on an event, it goes to the event list, the event single event view, and it has more options for like attending the event, and you can follow the host, and it has tags for the event.
What does follow host do?
I did not. I think it's just it hasn't been implemented yet.
Ah, okay. So it's coming in a future release canvas?
Yeah, I think so. I think that might be the next one, but I'm not sure.
Okay. So in general, whenever you're completing a release canvas, everything on the screen should work. So if something's coming in a future release canvas, just make sure you remove it from the screen.
Okay.
Because think about this as like, you're going to ship this like to users, right? CommunityCalendar.com is going to go live tomorrow. And so you have users, jumping in and they see a button, they click it, and nothing happens. Not a good experience.
Yeah, that makes sense, definitely.
Cool.
Alrighty.
Do the tags work as well? Or is that something else that's coming in a future one?
So the tags come out of the database. Like the tags and the event details are all event information we're fetching from our event database.
Cool.
Buttons to attend an event or follow a host, those capabilities have not been built in.
Got it.
And then in the next canvas, where we create the form for creating an event, they'll be able to enter in these tags, and they'll get sent to the database.
Gotcha.
That's pretty. Oh yeah.
Cool. And what happens if you sign in, sign up? What happens if you're signed in? Anything different, or is it exactly the same?
I think for now, since we haven't created the form for like making an events, so far you can like sign in with Google. I'm already signed in, and it displays your
Mm-hmm.
profile picture. But other than that, it's pretty much the same.
Cool. Same question on search. Do you have anything on search, or is that just like
It's
coming
just,
in the future?
That's the next release canvas. Is
Yeah.
we'll search, the search bar will be functional, and those tags, users can click on them, and we'll show them other events that match those tags.
Cool. All right. Well, in that case, do make sure you go and at least hide those for now until they're actually working.
Yeah,
All right.
that's
Cool.
pretty much it. So I think Wesley's going to talk about the front end code now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you guys see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we're using React on the front end with a custom Webpack compiler to build the production build. So our own scripts there. We're using Apollo client for state management, React Router DOM for routing between pages,
Mm-hmm.
SAS and Bulma for styling, and Jest with the @testing library React for testing. So this build utils folder has all of our Webpack stuff, and in source assets is our fonts and images, components, all the components we use to create the pages.
Mm-hmm.
Pages is our 2 pages, home and event view. Global styles are in this styles folder. So these classes can be accessed from any component. And then we have style modules for individual components that have classes that are scoped to only them. And I can run the test suite. It only didn't run all of them. Because we got 18, it's some snapshot tests, some unit tests, some integration tests, no end-to-end test yet. And if I do the build command, it's gonna create a public directory and put the output there.
Looks good.
So
Still waiting on the build.
there it is. So there's the bundle stuff. Okay. There any files you'd like to see?
Nope.
Any
That's
other
fine.
questions?
I can dive into the GitHub repo and poke around there. What I'll probably do in the future is just kind of skim your PRs so that I'm kind of up to date on where you're at in terms of code changes before we come into the review. And that way you can just focus on demoing the product, kind of talking about what you're going to work on next. And then most importantly, from a technical perspective, I'm curious to hear what are the technical challenges that you're facing. Like, what do you think is going to be blocking you? Do you have any, are you working through how to organize your data on the back end? Are you trying to figure out, a third-party API integration and struggling with that? So more in future release Canvas reviews, we can just focus on those. Like, I'll have time at the end to be able to answer those technical questions.
Okay.
Cool. All right.
Mark is gonna do the back end walkthrough.
Okay. is it mainly going to do a code walkthrough, Mark?
Yeah.
Can we skip that part for now? I want to make sure we have time to do like the iOS demo and that kind of stuff. And
Yeah,
what
sure.
I want to reserve some time at the end to answer any like technical questions or challenges you guys might be having. Does that sound good? So be thinking about that. If y'all are like thinking ahead, like one release canvas, what are some of the things that you're currently struggling with?
You guys are doing great, by the way.
Absolutely.
All right, so you're ready for the Android stuff?
Yes, Android.
Okay. Let's see here. Let me pull up. So here's our release canvas right now. It was just the focus of the user login and mainly the events list, making sure that the events popped up. We're going to run into a lot of the similar things that you mentioned for web. We have a lot of things that are not usable yet.
Got it.
Strive to get to the wireframe, but
yeah,
we have it focused. So there are two of the.
It looks gorgeous, by the way. I love the product. It looks like a newspaper, which is really awesome. Who's the UX on your team?
JP. He's the legend. He's the man.
He is.
JP, awesome. So one way that you could really help your web and iOS teams is also by making a scaled back version of each mockup for each release canvas. Of like when you add these, and this will help because it'll be kind of painful when the development team like hides certain things in the mockup or in the actual product because it's not implemented yet. Like things are going to look a little off at times. So JP, this will give you an opportunity to kind of rebalance the layout based on what's there right now and actually working.
So like, for instance, like the search and a couple of other things I should take out, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that allows you to like, if you had, for example, like 4 columns or like a columnar approach or whatever on that one event screen, and that right column isn't going to be there at all because the follow host button isn't there.
Isn't there? Okay.
Then you can kind of rebalance from a composition perspective, the layout so it still looks good. Knowing that this is what I always tell UX and like labs. UX and labs is really hard because you have to be thinking like, what's the 3 to 6 month roadmap for this like product? What's it going to look like 3 to 6 months from now? But within labs, we're only going to build the first 8 weeks. And so you have to continually be scaling that 3 to 6 month wireframe or mockup back to each release canvas. Here's how it looks for this release canvas, knowing that we're eventually going here.
Okay, I got it.
Cool.
Yeah, because when I was making designs, I had the full product or the design in mind before.
Yeah.
So yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You kind of have to live in 2 worlds of like the world that is now and the world that is not yet.
Yes.
But you want to have that, like it needs to be cohesive 6 months from now, right?
Right.
So you have to kind of maintain both. But yeah, looks great. Looks really good. Justin, sorry to interrupt you. Anything else to show me here in terms of you've got your event page now and the
Yeah. So the focus was that it was just making sure we had a featured events list and events. This is where the featured events are.
Nice.
As well as these, and we made it so you can go into a grid view as well.
Sweet.
And the last thing on it was really this other is just that the user can log in, register, and all that. So yeah, that's about all the features that we were aiming for this canvas.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, I noticed that y'all have a couple of tabs you're going to have to drop from the tab bar until those features are implemented as well.
Yes, quite a few. Matter of fact, JP even revamped a little bit of the UI, so we'll be changing.
Yes, I did.
Nice. That's awesome. Cool.
Right.
Well, this looks really good.
And did you want me to walk you through a little bit of the code with this right now, or?
I don't find the code walkthroughs. I know that was on the doc. I was just back channel DMing with Ronnie, and I was saying code walkthroughs aren't super helpful in the product cycle review meetings. It's more helpful if I can take time outside of the review meeting and just go tool around in GitHub myself and take a look at PRs. And like I said, the most helpful thing from a technical perspective that usually comes out of these meetings is somebody saying like, well, we're trying to figure out how to implement or integrate with Auth0 on the back end because we're also, or I mean, sorry, on Android, because we're also using it in web, and we want to use the same authentication layer on both, but we're running into this problem where like, okay, well, let's dig into that. So it's usually like letting you tell me, instead of you proactively showing me a bunch of code, which I'm not going to have time to absorb it right now on this call anyway. It's you bringing me technical challenges and then let me figure out how we can solve those. And if we can't solve them on the call, scheduling 30 minutes or an hour tomorrow to actually deep dive with that team on that specific problem. So.
Okay. Well, sweet then. Yeah, we were able to work it all out with the web. So
nice.
Pretty well.
Looks like you guys have done great work. Seriously, like it looks good. The fact that you have it working, you know, a mobile. You have both a nice web front end, you've got a back end API that supports all those features, and a mobile app that's integrating with that same API on the back end. Awesome. That's great work in the first couple of weeks of Labs.
Thanks.
All right, so the next thing we normally do, and I hope that this was documented and you guys had a chance to review it, is just go through the project completion rubric. Have you guys seen that, Doc? Was somebody going to walk me through that?
Yeah, I've got that here. Yes. So for the product cycle completion rubric,
yeah.
So one in terms of project features deployed exceed the description of the release canvas. So JP set the bar pretty high with his wireframes, like just showing a list of events was what was actually on the release canvas in terms of what we had. So pretty much what's inside of this box, like from here down, was the release canvas. Less single event view, but integrating, you know, the featured events carousel, that was stretched.
Yeah.
Integrating, filtering by date range, that was stretched. So not every
one thing I want to bring up from a UX perspective, and you should show this to some other folks as well, but that UX experience around filtering looked weird to me. And the reason why is it changed the featured events that were above the filter. For some reason,
yeah.
like, okay.
It was actually, I didn't really see this before, but the featured event is not supposed to change. It's only the events from below, from today, tomorrow, this week, and all upcoming.
That's, as a user, that's what I would have expected to happen.
Yeah.
As well. So just a minor UX thing there.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
So featured should probably stay the same, right? Like you imagine
Correct, yes.
someone that has a community calendar, like featured is featured. Like these are what we want you to see. And if you wanted to switch it, like JP was saying, you might need to bring that filter up above so that it actually shows filters the things below it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That makes sense. But we think we exceeded expectations for the deployment and feature completion.
Yeah.
In terms of quality assurance, we'll talk more about that when we get to testing, but I hope that doesn't have any visible bugs. Everything worked as expected in our rehearsal yesterday. We had a few bugs that we quashed in the last 24 hours. Usability and research. I'm not sure if JP wants to just give a quick 10, 15 seconds or however much time you need to like talk about kind of what your vision is for where user research goes and when we're ready to put it in the hands of researchers, because you know we've obviously tested the app. But
when it comes to usability, I just feel like the stuff we have now isn't enough for any users to actually have a good representation of what this app's going to do. I would rather have it on release canvas 2 for usability's sake, because then we have a search, we will have a sign-in that's a lot better. Being able to view an event, I feel like those things are very key to have, you know, to have a user to actually test. So that's always my plan on having the usability test on release canvas 2, during release canvas 2 at least.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I think the one thing you can do now is just this sort of very low-level usability test where you just like put the product in someone's hand, your mom, your roommate, your whoever, your good friend, and just be like, try, like have them try to mess with it in some way and talk out loud while they're doing it.
Exactly. That was my plan, is to just create a few prototypes, not like, a few prototypes for them to test. But that was my plan for them. Gotcha.
No, I meant with the actual product you have now too.
Yeah.
Like just let them, just let somebody outside of your team see it. It's one of those things where sometimes someone whose eyes are a little more distant from the product might be able to might ask some questions that you hadn't thought of. So
Yeah, it makes sense. Thank you for that.
yeah, no problem.
So we hit documentation, and we don't just have boilerplate documentation. We talked about the key features and the decisions that led us to picking Apollo GraphQL over REST. And those other pieces, we kind of have the roadmap laid out in terms of when each features are going to come in. Release Canvas 2, we're looking to geocode event addresses. We can serve people lists of events based on how far they are from the user. It's kind of from our initial PVD meeting, that's kind of a key differentiating part of our app is kind of the location sensitivity. So we pushed off map views because we still have to work on event CRUD, but pretty much Release Canvas 2 is going to be create and update events. And, you know, so we've kind of got the roadmap for where this is going. We've got instructions and a PDF guide because we are using Prisma and Auth0. So pretty much you need to have 2 active cloud service provider accounts going per development environment. So pretty much everybody had to really do a lot of legwork. Mark did a lot of great work documenting in a guide that we have hosted the PDF for how you go about setting up these Prisma and Auth0 services for future developers working on the project.
That's fantastic. That'll be so great when handing it off to another team coming on. That's really great.
Yeah, and even like just between the 5 of us, we need this documentation. Like coming back from break and trying to get my Prisma service back up.
Oh man, documentation is a gift to your future self. It's like, I'm gonna write this now, and I will benefit from this later. That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's kind of the backend API documentation. Then, you know, every client, web, iOS, mobile also has their piece documented about how they're using their specific stack and what tools they're using. The last piece I'll touch on is testing. If we reached the limit of our technical capabilities, it was trying to test the backend.
Sure.
Now our solution is we have a testing database because mocking Prisma was kind of mind-bending. So we just created a testing Prisma database that we felt we could sort of safely run our tests on. But we have this construct test server function, and then every time we run a test, you know, we construct a server. So the server itself is an instance for the test, but all our tests are connecting back to the same database. And I feel like that's going to create us some issues for us once we start wanting to do integration tests on our CRUD functions. Because creating events, deleting events, reseeding events is going to pretty much alter the state of our database, which is going to, you know, break all of our snapshots. We haven't figured out that piece with like how we can testing the database.
So Prisma is kind of a new beast for me. Like I've just started using it in December of last year. And I'm still getting used to it. But the concept that you want to try and enforce is that your database always starts empty. And ideally, before every single test case, so every it block, you should start with an empty database. And then you actually, in that it block, or in like if you're using, you're using like an RSpec style thing. So you could have like a before block that then puts the database in the appropriate state for just that test. Right. So if you need an event and you need a user, then that before block like sets up, like creates a user, creates an event, that kind of stuff, associates them in the right way. And then your it block of that would actually assert something about that data that you've just added. And then ideally at the end of that test case, that data is deleted and your database starts back over again at blank. And that's the way you get around exactly the problem you're talking about, Lewis, of like, I've got this test database that we're all sharing, and as we change its state, then we have like this really weird unknown state problem. So every test should set itself up, set up all the things it needs to, and then tear down at the end. In the Ruby world, there's some really nice stuff that does this for you, like database cleaner or something like that, that like when the test suite runs at the end of every test, at the end of every assertion, every it block, it automatically wipes the database for you. Actually, in Postgres, you can do really crazy stuff where you do it always inside of a transaction, and then you roll back the transaction at the end, which is super cool. It actually never commits the transaction. And so you like do the entire test within that. Not sure how you'd set it up within Prisma, but it seems like you're making some headway in terms of getting the right kind of configuration set up there. it might just be another method in your test helper that you can set to like, is there in the test, is this Jest that you're using?
Yeah, we're using Jest.
So you might look and see if there's like a Jest that's like an always before and an always after method that runs. And so if you can do one that's like always after in terms of like after every single thing that has the helper function that wipes the database.
Okay.
That would kind of do the cleanup for you after every test case. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah, 'cause, after getting this sort of test server constructed, we got to the limit of, pull an array, see if it's the array we think it is, pull an event, see if it's the event we think it is. But no, that's like really helpful guidance in terms of getting to that next level of sophistication with what we're going to be doing to test our backend. And then we did touch on analytics. If there's one thing we didn't exceed expectations on, it's probably that. We do have a Google Analytics tracker. We can see everybody right now on our database for our product cycle. And then we are tracking some user events, but right now we're hard coding these tracking events into our front end. We're not using a mix panel or anything like that. So we're doing, I think it's called React. Google Analytics is what we're using. And then you can see I think it's in the nav bar where we're embedding the React. Yep, we're importing React.ga here. And then when we're clicking, we're sending that event to the server. So in terms of more sophisticated analytics or kind of visualizing user flows, we're not there yet. That's probably another thing. I know you said to check out Mixpanel. And I think that's like what it does out of the box. But
yeah, I mean, Google Analytics is fine, honestly. It really is Google Analytics or Mixpanel. You don't need to use both. So if you've got GA set up, just keep going down that path. The main one, it's not uncommon at all to have to like hard code like the track calls to happen on certain events in your front end. That's usually the way it's done. It's like when this gets clicked, send a track call. When this gets clicked, send a track call. The main thing you're going to want to use, Lewis, in the GA dashboard or whatever in their little app is the behavior flow. You'll see it over there on the left. So right now you don't have or maybe it's called event flow.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah,
I'm more Mixpanel guy. So.
Yeah, there is a behavior flow.
Okay. Yeah, this is the one. So this lets you build a funnel from they hit the landing page, they went to the login page, they signed in and got to the dashboard, they clicked on an event, and so what eventually the goal for your product is someone clicking attend event. Right? Like that would be your North Star. We want people to attend more events. And so there's a flow from the first time that they hit your application all the way through to that that North Star, that goal state. And so what you want to know is where are people falling out? And then once you can quantitatively look at where people are falling out of that flow, you can start to diagnose why they might be falling out. Oh, when they get to the events list, they filter but they never go to an event. They never go to view event. Okay, well, maybe there's not enough events there that they're interested in, or maybe it's not obvious how to get to the view event page, or they get to a view event, but they never click attend. And so maybe the events that we do have just aren't interesting enough. Maybe they're not seeing the attend button. Maybe we need to make it more obvious or more prominent. So that you can kind of start to reason about why people aren't deriving the value from the product that you thought they would get. So.
Gotcha. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, so like I said, Google Analytics, in terms of active metrics, is probably the only thing I really wouldn't say I feel like we exceeded expectations on. But overall, the development team's velocity has been pretty high, especially with the break there in the middle. And
yeah.
Is the review, unless you have any more questions, Jess?
Nope, this looks really good. The only thing else I would say is, I know we're a few minutes over our meeting time. Are there any technical challenges I can help you with that you're aware of or that you're kind of concerned about coming up?
Not for me personally, other than what we discussed with testing. I'm not sure if the mobile guys or the other web devs have anything.
All right, cool. And I think I can already visualize what your product will look like at the end of release Canvas 2. Can already see it. So I think, yeah, just keep going and keep adding features. And yeah, after this next one, it'll be really interesting to get it in front of some people and have them give you some feedback. So, all right.
Good, Jess.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Go
you, Jess.
team. All right.
All right, Jess.
Jess.